What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. Today we're going to go over a pre-alpha deck profile for Thavas G with Tidal, which is from the history collection that's being errata with some new cool effects. And so I'm going to also dive into what we speculated at this point that we know, a little bit of the deck profile, how it works with the mindset too, some key combo plays that I'm working on right now, and also talk about some suggestions that I thought of, and also moving forward about the impact if we do get a fully revealed skill soon. So let's get right into it. Also, I've become an official Metafy coach for Cardfight Vanguard, and so if you ever want to get one-on-one time with me to help your skill level, go ahead and book a session with me. I can help with premium format, standard, or even clans like Aquaforce and many others, and even YouTube as well. I just want to help fellow amigos and make an impact within the community itself. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message too. You can use the link down below in the description to book your session as well. So right off the back, I want to start off with saying that we got history collection announced just a little bit ago, and we only know certain things that are actually certain. And so I want to preface with this deck profile with that. Two things are guaranteed from what they said on the stream. One is that you're able to superior stride if you ride to grade 3 with a specific card and you don't have any gift markers. And so this implies with Aquaforce it's going to be Tidal, which was actually revealed to be the errata stride, but also we're thinking that it's going to be the original Thavas back in G era. So that's the preface of that, the heart condition to be able to superior stride. So the idea behind it is that this can help with the ride out, ride down game with the current metagame in premium. So if your opponent's going second, they're a grade 2, while you ride up to grade 3 and use superior stride into Tidal. And you can see it can actually help kind of balance that out with, you know, the things that are coming about. It seems kind of overpowerful, but playing with it is not as OP as you would think it is. Obviously, some clans are better with it, and we don't know the full effects of it. The second thing that's guaranteed is that all the on-hit skills that these strides have are now guaranteed to work, regardless if they didn't hit. So with Tidal specifically, and I'll zoom in a little bit, is that at the third battle, at the end of that, when it hits, you can draw a card and call a card from your hand and call it to a rearguard circle. So with this, you can already see that it gives you a little bit of advantage. It gives you an extra attack. So if it already has to be the third battle or more, then you're going to get at least 4 attacks if you do call something, for example. And you can further extend from there if you can and need to, right? So in essence, as soon as we ride to a grade 3 Thavas, we're going to superior stride, and we're going to use the on-hit skill. We're not going to assume that it's going to persona flip and get 2 XL gifts. Some people are speculating that we get 2 force gifts like the all mile stride, but it's going to be the same with all strides. That part wasn't actually confirmed. So I just want to preface that. And if it is later on, I'll actually talk about at the end of the deck profile, the implications of the deck build too and moving forward. So into the card choices themselves. So with the old school Aquaforce, we need to reach a certain number of battles. And so you have to have that mindset. And what does the G Thavas do when you break stride? And to be quite frank, it doesn't do much. So essentially your Vanguard stride will get the ability that on the 4th battle when your unit attacks, you can choose 3 of your opponent's rear guards and actually have them choose one of them and retire them. So it gets a little bit of retirement, which is okay, but it's not great in today's metagame. I mean, Genbo, for example, you draw 3 cards and you retire 3 cards on your opponent's side, right? So this is a little bit of just kind of like power creep at that point too. But I mean, if you're going first and they're grade 2, it makes a difference, right? The GB2 skill, more than likely, you won't use. So during the 4th battle that your Vanguard attack, if it's the 4th battle or more, your opponent cannot call cards with grade 0 from hand to Guardian Circle, and it gets an additional crit. Sounds really good, but the only thing is it doesn't gain any power, so it's an 11k Vanguard Twin with Twin Drive. But if there's G guards now that can easily guard it, and you got grade 1, you got the Blitz Order, for example, too, that guards it. So you're not going to use the GB2 skill. And really, so Thavas really in the essence is just the ability superior stride if you go first with this build. So I opt to 3 copies. And then in the case that you're going second, you're playing still a copy of the V Thavas. They have the same name. So you can only play up to 4 copies of the card with the same name, right? And so having this is pretty good because, again, if you go second, you generate an Excel circle and you can go into Gembold more than likely too. So that way you can take advantage of a Gembold turn and do normal Aquaforce stuff that you already do in premium. And also we are playing some of the searchers Uniq too, so you can search for this Thavas too, a little more easier too. And obviously I'm playing a split of the Uniqs too, so you're able to search it, and then also the top 5 grade 3 searcher to help find the grade 3 that you need for that turn. So we're also playing a couple more grade 3s. The next one that we're playing is a Genovia. So one of the things that I noticed too is that even if you're past the the first stride turn if you're going first, right? While your opponent's a grade 2. Afterwards, you would like to ride another grade 3 with the excel marker. So again, we're assuming that with Tidal board, we're not getting any excel. So it's literally 2 rearguard columns that we're working with that we're assuming in this profile. So just having rideable grade 3 with excel gifts helps with that going first. And then if you're going second, this could be another rewrite. And Genovius is such a great card. So whenever you're at 4 damage or more, when this attacks, you restand everything essentially. So you can get a lot of attacks. It's a great card too. So I recommend that. And at the same time, you can only play so many Thavases. So this is really your other option unless you play a different grade 3 option with the excel gift. Another tech that I wanted to try out is actually the ruler Thavas. Again, we can search Thavas copies with the Uniq, which I am playing. So this was like another way to, like, if I need a re-standard, this can help out. And then if your opponent's also going first, more than likely in this metagame build, they're also going to run some of these. So their Vanguard is 11k base. So this guy hits by himself. And if you have an excel gift, potentially this can be 16k, swing 16k. And if your Vanguard attacks and you upload any triggers this house, it's a GB2 re-standard on the 4th battle or on the 1st battle, essentially. And then if you are going against like a disruptive play matchup, you can write this as Vanguard. And then when you stride, you can call something from your hand and it gets resist until the end of the turn. So you can give your important units that you want to fleshly go through with resist. So it's helpful in that regard. So I figured I'd play one at least just to have access to it. And then the next card we have is a grade 3 called Benedict, and this is an old school card too. So as I was building this deck, I felt like maybe having one Tidal Assault would be really good as well, just to have the restanding skill essentially, and it's free, right? Now what I realized too is that we're still playing against opponents that may be the Force Clan, so they have 10k grade 2s. Tidal Assault cannot hit by himself, so Benedict is actually a good option because he's 10k base. So he hits over those guys too. Furthermore, it's a grade 3 that you can pitch to stride if you need to, and you could always revive it back with a revival card like Spiritual Body Condensation. So there's ways to get it, and if you do see it, it's another way to have aggression behind it. And also you can add triggers for later battles that you want to restand. It's just a great card. It's free. But the most important thing that I find out is that because you're not getting any excel gifts, you're not drawing cards, especially when you ride to grade 3. In fact, when you ride your grade 3, that's 1 card less in your hand, and then now you have to have basically the cost of grade 3s to pitch to superior stride. As of right now, too, to make it clear, supposedly the stride fighters, like the grade 1 stride fighters and the crit fighters, do not work because it's a superior stride skill. It's confusing, but we're playing under the assumption that it does. Those grade 1 and crit stride fighters do not work at all. So you really need to pitch grade 3s in general to be able to do the superior stride. So this kind of helps with that being a grade 3 too, if you need to pitch it for the cost essentially. And then lastly, with the grade 3 still, we are playing the 4 grade 3 heals. If you're going second, you need to survive, especially if your opponent's doing the same thing. They're going to have on-hit strides that are going to be erratas, so you want to live. I feel like even more in this metagame, you need to have some survival cards essentially. So, and again, it's a grade 3, so you can pitch for the cost of stride if you're going first and you're trying to do the superior stride skill. Now onto the grade 2. So we're playing 4 terrific coils. So with Tidal board, its skill, it's on the 3rd battle, and you're only playing with 2 rearguard columns again. So just thinking about what helps with the synergy of the deck, you can have 2 rearguards attack separately and then have Tidal board, and then at the end of the battle, you can call that card and have 4 attacks. Now the problem with that is that you're not putting the triggers onto another unit that's standing still. So you may lose on crit pressure, you may lose on just power generation just in general. So what comes to mind is kind of like the old school mentality in G Aquaforce. You need to get to the 4th battle with a restander, right? And so that's where Terrific Coils comes into play, where he can be that 1st battle restand, the 14k hitter. And again, it hits over the 10k grade 2s if you're going first, which is nice. And then if you're going second, this still hits over 13k base Vanguards on top of that as well. And so you'll get your first 2 attacks with Terrific Coil with the cost of a Soul Blast 1. So if you're at 1 damage or you're being damage denied, you can still get to those battles regardless really easily, which is really nice. So otherwise you have to use other restanders like the Algos from V series, but it's a counterblast with similar synergy. So you might as well use Terrific Coil. It's once per 10 gives it the plus 5k, so whenever it's stood by ability, it'll be the 14k attack, and it's immediate too, so you get to benefit from it right away too. And I play 4 copies because you want to see it in that turn anyway. So that way your other rigger can get the triggers to benefit from it. And then you could always call a card from Tidal board onto the Terrific Coil circle. So you can get to the 5th attack, essentially, in that turn. So it helps with that. Now, another card, I have actually tried something similar to Coral Assault before I swapped back Coral Assault. So the essence of Coral Assault is that it's a 24k beater that you can rely on. What I realized later on, too, you still need his advantage regaining. What I mean by that is that when you do the 4 battles, it goes into Assault to get you a card back. You still need that hand pressure, because if you didn't have anything to come back to generate hand, you have a weak size hand, and you could pretty much lose the following turn when they actually can stride normally. And if you're playing against the metagame right now, all they need to do is get first stride, and if they live and they have enough few combo pieces to pop off, they will pop off and end you. So I was actually playing a card called Byron before, and Byron is the 24k beater when it's the 4th battle or more. So again, it was the mentality of getting to the 4th battle, and you know, if Tidal board is going to be 3rd, then more than likely Byron's going to be live after that, so you have that pressure too. And there's other cards that help with that pressure, but I find out that Coral Soul is still valuable. It's even more imperative still with the jumbo turn, because you want to call cards, do some pressure, and get advantage back too. So that way you have a healthy hand size. So Coral Soul is still valuable. The numbers may be funky if you don't have enough regards, but it's okay at the end of the day, because there are cards that you're able to revive this card and just be able to benefit from it moving forward too. The last grade 2 is Alania. So Alania, we haven't seen in a while. And again, just like I mentioned, if you're going first, you're not getting an Excel gift. You're not really generating an advantage as much compared to Premium Thavas as it is before History Collection. So having a card where you can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and call grade 2 or less and give it plus 5k is pretty valuable. It's also 10k base, so if you call this on the Tidal board call, it activates from hand. And because Tidal board calls from hand, it works. So you can further extend more attacks with that. And so you essentially just replace your front rows with Alania and whatever grade 2 or less that you call. It could be a Coral Assault, it could be a Terrific Coil, or it could be your grade 1s. It doesn't matter. You call something, essentially. And you can make a column if you need to make a column, if that's better too. There are some grade 1s that I do play that you may want to revive and just kind of have set up for the board too. And if you call a column, it's going to be 7k booster minimum with a 10k Alania, which makes 17, and then plus 5 will make a 22k column. And if it's an 8k booster, 23k. So it still makes a decent column in that size too. But Alania, I feel like it's still important, because more than likely the grade 2 that you do ride with, you might want to like call it essentially and use it as a rigger too. And if you're going second, it's another way to like generate more board. But ideally this helps when going first, and so you want to really take advantage of that. Onto the grade 1s, we're playing 4 Barragios. So Barragios went up a lot in this deck list. You want to make sure you have the right grade 3 that you want if you're going first or second. The other thing is that you need to fetch for grade 3s to pay the cost of the Superior Stride too as well. So Barragios is even more impactful on just getting grade 3s in general. If you're going second, and get the grade 3 heal so you can survive better too. And then of course, if there's 4 or more rested rearguards, it gets plus 5k. So it's a good booster. It can be a good attacker. It can be a card that you call with Alania as a good booster, or as an attacker if you need to be. Just a flexible card. This is also a card that's 8k base that you could ride as Vanguard, and if you're going second, you can still attack and do damage if you plan to do damage still, right? So you'll realize that there's some other cards that I do play that are not 8k base. They're like 7 or 6k base, because they're older cards, and some of them are just like Rolex, for example. So you have to have a trigger to pass to even do a damage, right? And the Aqua Force is still a deck that you still need to have a tempo that you build up throughout your game to make sure you win. Now onto the Nikis. So we're playing 2 of the V series Nikis, and then 2 of the G era Nikki. So maybe asking yourself, why a 2-2 split? So with the V Nikki, one, it's a 10k shield, it's an 8k base. So with Barragios and your V Nikki, they're the 8k base Vanguards that you want to ride first, right? Going second, essentially, right? And you're able to potentially fetch for the right Thavas, because you dig 7 cards deep with its skill, on top of the unright skill from the starter too. So you see 8 cards in total. So that can help. It searches for either Thavas that's the original Thavas name, right? The other aspect is that if you do have the G Nikki, you can call it to rearguard, reveal any grade 3 that you have, which again, we play a decent amount, and we have the grade 3 heals now that you can reveal and search for the right Thavas that you want to as well. Again, you can search for the G one or for the V series one. So it gives you different avenues to search for the right Thavas that you need moving forward too. These can also pay the cost of stride, so you can get to keep your crit fodders, your grade 3s that you may want to call as rear guards, or maybe save up for writing again for the next turn to get Excel circles. So it just kind of helps with that. But essentially it helps with the consistency of getting the right grade 3s that you need, while also maybe getting the rule of Thavas too as well, if you need to have some rear guard pressure with a restander too as well. Speaking of Rolex, so we have 3 Rolex still. Again, I think Rolex and grade 3 heals are going to be super important moving forward with these superior strides. You want to survive. That's really what they're for. They're 1 card PG if you're grade 2 or less. So even if you're not playing the right out, right down game with people, if you're going second, you just need to survive. That's pretty much it. And then we're also playing 2 Orpheus and a Spiritual Body Condensation. So I want to spend a little time on these 2 cards. So with Orphea, it's another way to get more attacks. You can restand cards like Coral Assault. I also thought about Byron too as a beater that you want to restand, especially you stack triggers. Just getting additional attacks if they give you the extra counterblast can seal the deal for you or put you in a position of winning moving forward too. And then it has resist too, so it's a card that you can call into the field and not like be sorry that you lost it by an effect or something. Most decks still can get around resist too, so it's just kind of a nice add-on just to have as well. And again, as you can see, she's 7k base, so if you do ride her, you need a trigger to pass if you're going second. The Spiritual Body Condensation is where it's like Alania, but this time you can revive anything you want to whatever grade you're ridden on, right? So for example, with Alania, you can't revive Ruler Thavas, you cannot revive Benedict, for example. So the Spiritual Body Condensation can revive Benedict and give it +5, which is good because it swings 15 and then reduces to 10. And if your opponent's still a 10k grade 2, guess what? It still hits, right? If you so happen to have that, right? And it's just moving forward, it gives you flexibility if you need to power up a Coral Assault or some of the cards, or maybe further extend just to extend better. Quickly with the triggers, we're playing the Petros crits. So these also got errated, and essentially they're 15k shield now. They're also 10k power up too. So they're like the normal triggers now that we have in premium, which is really good. The second thing is that it still has the original skill. So when your Thavas Vanguard attacks, this can go into your soul and give it +5k, essentially. The other benefit is that when they're damage checked, you draw a card. So they're almost like draw triggers when you damage check them, which is really helpful. One, I think it's an attempt for Bushiroad to have players survive going second. 2, it helps you with combo pieces because, again, you need to pitch for stride and stuff like that. And with Aqua Force, we're not getting the Excel gift, assuming if we don't get any Excel gifts. So this helps right now. And we're playing more crit. We're playing the crit stride fighters. Again, you need ways to stride moving forward too. And if you're going first or second, you'll be striding first. So you can use the crit fighters to be able to stride. And then we're playing the less favor over trigger. Still good. So you might as well play it. And then 4 PG draws, you need to make sure you have your draws so you have pieces. And these are the Sentinels. You can play the Blitz Order Sentinel if you want, but then you want to compensate for a draw. And I tried it before with my Worlds list where I played the stoicheia draw trigger and then the Blitz Order. I went back to the PG draws because it's like, if you're going to play draw triggers, you might as well make them the Sentinel in that mindset. And then lastly, we're playing the V-Era starter. So there's a temptation that you can play like a G-Era starter as your starting Vanguard, or maybe you can main deck like an Andre, for example. I was trying to fit Andre too, but I felt like with what pieces are already in the deck, there's only so much room. And so I felt like this was still important to dig a card deeper into your deck. And if you go in second, you have a ticket shield. So you can use that to survive extra, or you can pitch it if you search the card that you need with Barragios and you just pitch the ticket shield at that point too. So with the G zone, really real quickly, right now I'm just trying at the 2 Tidal board because assuming moving forward you'll persona flip, but again, we don't know the skill yet, so it could be, who knows, generating 2 Excel gifts or something completely different. I would recommend playing at least a pair. There might be an argument for playing a full set of 4 copies. We just have to see the full effect, but that's really essentially what we're working with. You also have access to gem bolts though, and again, if you're going second, this helps generate advantage if you really want to. I'm trying 1 right now just to make room with the Tidal board too as well, but you could play around with it. And I'm playing Lambros just in case you're damage denied moving forward, you're going second. It's another option because it kind of has the old school Aqua Force feel, because Terrific Coil gets you the 1st and 2nd battle, and then your other units the 3rd battle, and then Lambros can swing 4. So it really is the synergy there. And his futuristic clone is the Alexandro. So if you do have the Counterblast, you can do the Alexandro's route. And you don't need to hit the 4th battle at that point. So it works out in that regard too. You still want to play a card like Ferragus because it's also the Excel generator. You can make an argument to play more copies with Ferragus too. So even though you're like the G Thavas, you can still keep generating Excel circles that way moving forward. And oh, actually, I am playing the jump. That's what I did. I took out the Cyclones from my word list. So I'm playing the 2nd gem bolt. So you might need to go into it. And then Valeos, again, still a good card. You can call during the battle phase, get multi-attacks. This really shines if you have 2 Excel circles, if not more. But it also blocks against the OT. So super good. Megiddo is really good, especially since this deck early on, mid-game, could struggle with keeping advantage. So having a card like Megiddo to revive pieces is super vital. So I would recommend it. And then G-Guards, really simply, 2 Gaphilia, 1 Dynera, 2 Ionis, and the Ice Barrier. So great shield values to whatever battles they have and costs that you have in the field that you build. We really need some new G-Guards. I'm going to be upfront with that. And sometimes the grade 3 heals would just do a better job, but essentially that's what a G-Zone example-wise right now can look like for you. Okay, I just want to show off like a quick example play. Let's say you're going first, your opponent's at grade 2. You ride up, you call your pieces, you're doing the superior stride, you pitch whatever grade 3 that you have to do this. Your setup will look like this. You could do terrific coil, you have a grade 2 body that you can work with. Doesn't really matter. As long as you have a setup like this, that might be better. We'll work this out. So essentially, your first attack will be terrific coil. You can Soul Blast 1. Free standard, it gets +5, so it's a 14k hitter. Again, for the 2nd battle. And there's 2 alternative ways you can do this. So I'm going to show first the 3rd battle with Tidal Bore. So Tidal Bore will attack, drive checks. You stack them onto the Coral Assault. Then you'll call a card. Let's just say, for the sake of the video, you're just playing a card, grade 3 dummy card. You draw a card, you call some attack extender. You can essentially attack this way. Now, you won't get the full power up in this case, so it's just a 20k shield, or a 20k attack line. But if they're 10k grade 2, again, this hits over a trigger. And then finally, your Coral Assault can swing, and guess what? He'll see 4 more other rested units, get the +15. And then at the end of the battle, you can Counterblast, Soul Blast 1, restand, -5, and attack again. So that's one way that you can do things. Another way that you can do, assuming, let's say, you have Counterblast. And so the other alternative is that when you do your 1st and 2nd battle, instead of attacking with Tidal Bore, you can attack with some kind of dummy grade 2 or grade 3 body that can still hit. Doesn't matter what it is. And then when Tidal Bore attacks, you'll have to stack the triggers onto a boost. It could be the Orphea, it could be this, doesn't really matter. And at the end of the battle, then you'll actually call a unit. And you could do it in multiple ways depending on what you want to call. So for example, if you call Alania, you can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast the grade 2 that you rode with. For example, it's Coral Assault, and call it immediately onto and it gets +5. So this helps with making numbers a little bit better. You can attack now with 8 base. Unfortunately, Barrage just doesn't have power here. But then when you attack, this has an additional +5k. So it's 29 by himself. And so when Orphea pops off with her skill Counterblast, it'll restand it as a 24k attacker still. So that can still hit regardless of the triggers. And so this awkward attack might be a little bit bigger first, and then the last attack might be smaller. And at the end of the turn, Coral Assault, like cards like Coral Assault will go into Soul and draw you a card too, while your opponent's still grade 2. So that's one way you can do things. You can revive different cards. It really just depends. And if you need to also call the card, let's say you call over a grade 2 that you really want to call, this counts as already retired. So you can actually pick that same card and call it in the other graveyard circle. And you can just further extend that way too. So that's one reason that I play Alania, because Tidal Bore, you can further extend attacks. Also, as a tip for Valeos, during Valeos turns, you can call Alania and call some other units too to have more attacks than your opponent would expect. So lastly, just to wrap up, some of the other cards I thought about, you know, the old school G series cards were like High Tide Sniper, Saberflow, Sibla, Melania, so many of the other cards, but a lot of them are just kind of irrelevant with what today's metagame is demanding from us. So for example, Saberflow gives us 2 more cards, but at that point you might be dead next turn, right? 2 cards isn't really going to make that difference, unfortunately. High Tide Snapper is only so much power, so you can play cards like Byron, you could play cards like Coral Assault. I've even considered the one for Maelstrom. I think it's Valeria. I can't remember her name. It's a different way, a different beater, essentially. So you can play cards like that too. And I also thought about like Tidal Assault, like I mentioned, but I feel like Benedict might be a better choice. And you can only play like maybe 1 or 2 copies of a restandard like that. It's also still good in the long game with Alexandros, if you go that route too. Some of the other great ones, like I said, Melania, it's just they're outdated cards too. So you're trying to hit certain numbers, but at the same time, if your opponent's using heal guards to buff up their Vanguard to 20k, for example, you need to hit over that threshold to make a decent turn still. And the other things that to consider is that moving forward, you still need to know how to play if you're going second. I think there was a lot of talk on Twitter that it's like, well, you're building a deck if you're going first, but then if you're going second, you're going to lose. So you have to be mindful of that, what I'm saying. So those are some of the cards that I was considering playing. I looked at other cards in V series too, but only so many were really useful and synergetic. Again, we only know so much with Tidal's full skill just yet, so we can't assume certain things. And I wanted to make it kind of like a pretty alpha deck build, so you guys can use this as a template moving forward. And so when we see the fully revealed skill, we can like tweak from there. And who knows, this can change. And if it is 2 Excel gifts, you just get 2 more Excel circles. You have more attacks, which is ridiculous. But I will say this: if you're going first, and again, you have to make sure that you have enough cards to be able to properly do the superior stride skill. And then if 2 Excel 2 gifts draw you 2 more cards, then it helps easily to commit to that board to do stuff. And I think cards like even Coral Assault and maybe Narissa will start shining more because there's more rear guards on board, and then can return into Soul to draw you more cards, so you're still having a healthy hand size essentially. And then moving forward, you can rewrite to get more Excel gifts with like the grade 3 gifts, or potentially Faragas, or if the second Tidal Bore, you want to just do it just to get 2 more gifts, you can do it that way too. So it really just depends. I think moving forward, it just depends how things scale. So I don't want to spend too much, but I just want to give you guys a bit of a good idea. Obviously, it's not fleshed out. This is literally still play testing. You can tweak it if you want to, but I would say just kind of wait till we get full revealed effects and really just go from there. And so if you want to support the channel, feel free to use the affiliated links with 50 Card Shop, Trading Card Man, TCG Player. And again, if you want to up your game with Metafy Coaching, feel free to book your session until the next one as well. So with that being said, on to the next video.